In episode 11, Adamo and Rashid talk to Santos, back by popular demand, in response to the thousands who listened to our previous Santos podcast. We delve further into some very interesting topics that will surely make you question what it's all about. Let's go.
And we're live here, and this is fantastic. We're very, very lucky to have Santos all the way from Mexico again. Welcome, Rashid, as well.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to the show. It's a beautiful day. Let's make the most of it.
Yes, and welcome, Santos. How are you going?
Very well, thanks, Adam and Rashid. What about you guys? You looking good?
Oh, it's good to be back. We've had a little bit of a break. We're back now. We for those of you who have just tuned in, we interviewed Santos about a couple of months ago, and it was very enlightening. We've had over 10,000 views from that episode. So back by popular demand, we've got Santos, who's look, I wouldn't say unorthodox, but he's got a system based on knowledge, not beliefs. Because I think
remember, it's not a belief system.
it's all about knowledge. It's all about what Santos knows, and it's based around syncretism. It's a combination of religious beliefs. He looks at the scriptures. He looks at the stars. He's got maybe 10, 15, 20 different things that he's learned over his time, and he's amassed a lot of followers. He's got people that are that he's learning from him, and he's got a bit of a following online. And is that a great summary, Santos? Would you say that I've
that's pretty general, man. I mean, this is for your audience. I mean, most of the people who know my work already know these things, but it's good for your audience to know. We did discuss in the first interview that, well, we come from the same place in Italy. We have the same surname, and I did some investigating, and I discovered, not everyone agrees, but that we're cousins, distant cousins. We are cousins. We're both Bonaccis. We are cousins. But I think the only person, my sister, she does all the genealogies and everything, and she said she can't find your family related to ours, and she's pretty good. But I remember when I was in Melbourne, I investigated. I think my father said, that we're related, but it's through the Colossimos,
Well, just stemming on from what we're talking about, because first we're talking about this connection, obviously, between myself and Santos. I actually just came back from Europe. So my father passed away 4 or 5 years ago. So I wanted to reconnect with my uncle and his family back in Soviet Manali, and I did a little bit of investigating. And I learned a lot about the Bonacci name. So I did a little bit of investigating, and what I learned that the Bonacci name, it's been around since 1871. So it's about 7 generations. So there's a lot of Italian families, Bonacci, Colosimo, and some others, that started from about 1871 in Colla. Colla, it's a region within Calabria, near Soviet Manelli. It's a little paese, it's a little town. So prior to 1871, apparently it was like Robin Hood.
Was it?
Yeah. So one night I spoke to Claudio, which is his cousin of mine, married into the family, Francesca. They just had their second baby. And he's really into family and Calabria. Because Calabria, everybody thinks that on the mountain and in Calabria, which is in Italy, everything has stayed the same over years. And it's like... But he was. We had a conversation. He said it's all changing, and so he informed me. He told me the history of, where Bonacci came from. So and then obviously fifth generation. We've come here to start the new cycle in Australia. And look, so mate, that was really enlightening. So when did you go? When did you go to Calabria? When have you been?
2013, when I did a syncretism tour of Europe. In Italy, I spoke in Florence, Lucca, and Rome, and then I went down to the foot and visited my Germinata side, my mother's side. I didn't visit any Bonaccis, only my mother's side.
And are they in, whereabouts were they in Calabria?
Borgia.
Borgia.
But apparently you loved Italy so much that you want to move there now. Huh?
No. Italy's great. Italy's great.
It's not the same anymore.
No, it's not the same. It's more transit, like people in, people out. Since COVID, I don't think from what I see, there's no money in Europe. If you want to make money, you got to go to the Middle East, in Doha, Dubai.
Yeah.
Mate, there's no money. Like the government, all the roads in Calabria in the last 5 years, there's no maintenance on any roads. All the trees have overgrown, so you can only have one car that goes, through the village. Because my uncle, we went for a drive, went to look at some land that we own and stuff, and there was only one car that could get through the road because the government's just forgotten about it. So yeah, they're doing it a little bit tough. But what I want to talk about is when I was in Rome, because I remember watching a couple of your podcasts, and you talk about this guy called Giordano Bruno. Now, before you talk, we went on a Myths and Legends tour in Rome, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Things were just starting to connect, and we met at the Piazza Campo di Fiori, right? And in this piazza, there was a statue of this guy. I'm like, because I love learning things on my holiday. We went on so many tours. And this young lady took us on a Myths and Legends, and we're standing at Campo di Fiori in this square where many moons ago used to be a place of execution. And I'm looking at this statue, and I still don't know what's going on. And then she said, Giordano Bruno. And then I started listening, and then it kind of clicked that after knowing Santos and his beliefs and stuff like that, Santos is... There's a parallel life here. You could almost say that he is the modern day Giordano Bruno. Now, this gentleman, he in the 16th century, he was a mathematician, he was a scholar, and he had a different belief system. His beliefs didn't correlate, or they weren't in line with the church.
But yeah,
so basically, cut a long story short, they burned him at the stake because of his stance and just his alternate thinking on the universe and science.
Yeah.
So, look, Santos, they're not going to burn you at the stake. But you're the modern. I can see a correlation in freedom of speech, because I'm trying to tie this into. We've got Santos online here.
Yeah.
Syncretism, his belief system, and I'm trying to tie this all in, and I'm putting the pieces together. And this statue.
What he's trying to say is that, do you see yourself as this person? Can you relate to this person?
Good question.
Look, I've read up on Giordano Bruno and studied. I studied his book on memory because one of my gifts, I guess, is memory. Like I learn a tune. I learn it by ear, and even my bandmates used to say, how do you always play that same song by the Gypsy Kings, note for note, and you never change it, and you always play the same? And it's my memory. That's how it is. So Giordano Bruno is known not only for syncretism, which I learnt a lot from him, syncretism, but he insisted that we go back to the old Egyptian religion of Hermes, the Hermetica.
That's right.
Because just recently in Europe, Marsilio Ficino just 50 or 60 years before Giordano Bruno, he transcribed the Hermetica, the Corpus Hermeticum, and Plato.
Okay.
And he was commissioned to do this by the Medicis and all these rich families, probably the Borgia family. That's where my mum, that's where I went to Calabria, Borgia. And Borgia is one of the biggest crime families in the world, one of the richest families. In fact, it was Pope Alexander VI, who was a Borgia, who sent the conquistadors over to here to take over the Americas, a Borgia.
Yeah, that's right.
Who together with Farnese, Borgia, Farnese, they both started the Jesuit order, the Inquisition.
Well, that makes sense, because when we were on that tour, see all the jigsaw puzzles coming, because in the area that we were staying, the families that owned most of the land there were the Farnese family. And then she said the Orsini family. And then my eyes lit up, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, because then I remember the conversation we had about, the rich families. There's actually a lot more families that own.
There's 22 black nobility families, and then there's a subset of 13 Illuminati families, and they're basically based over in America. But those 13 that everyone talks about, all the 13 Illuminati families, they've got English names for a reason. The black nobility, all of them have Persian Roman names. Farnese is Persian. I know, because I learnt Farsi. I can read and write the Aramaic and Arabic alphabet, just as I do Hebrew and Japanese, right? So I learnt that in my 20s. Okay, so where were we going?
The Farnese family. So we're learning about these rich Italian, the rich. So I was really enlightened. About learning about. And then the funny thing, did you want to keep talking? Or
Yes.
No?
I think so.
No, you hold that thought, because I'll remember what I've got to say. I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, so then, they're talking about the history of, like all these families. And then she said, well, it's funny because half of these government, because they're government buildings now, and they've been taken over. She said that half of these buildings are owned by a different mob now.
Yeah.
Could you guess who half of all those buildings in Rome are owned by? And when she said, I'm like, I just didn't understand. The Chinese.
Yeah, you were telling
The
me.
Chinese they've been buying land all around the world, and
They're buying land in Australia. They're buying houses. That's why the houses
So I just thought that was interesting,
keep
because
going up.
I just like.
Yeah, let Santos talk about this. How you said that they've got Roman, Persian names. Like
Good one. Yeah, let's go back to there, because how do we know Farnese is Persian? Well, the Persians speak Farsi.
Farsi, yes.
Yeah.
And I used to speak Farsi. Okay. When I say that, it was very, very conversational, because it was when I was a Jehovah's Witness and I was studying with I think it was about 13, 14-year-old Persian boy. His mother she loved the witnesses. She wanted me to study with him, and I taught him mathematics and stuff. I spent extra time with the kid, and she taught me Farsi. But in the Bible, Jesus cursed. Remember, he cursed the Pharisees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Farnese, Farsi. That family there, they controlled the Silk Road thousands of years. Well, I'm not going to use history because
Silk Road, because they're building that Silk Road again.
Yeah.
I think it's through Afghanistan.
Yeah. So what happened was Persia was right in the middle, right? So you've got India and Japan and China way past Persia, and those were big civilized blocks, and they already knew that the Americas were civilized. New York's been there for thousands of years, Chicago. It's this story about horse and cart and building these cathedrals, it's all fucking ridiculous. So they knew this. So what happened was these black nobility families, they hid themselves. They went to Ravenna from Rome. So the Roman Empire, what they did was they left Rome when the Huns came down, and they were sacked in the 4th century, right? They were sacked. So in the 4th century, they said, let's get out of Rome. So they went up to Ravenna in Emilia-Romagna.
Okay.
Okay, there's 20 regions in Italy. Calabria, where we come from, that's at the bottom. Emilia-Romagna, Romagna, Rome.
Yeah.
And the town that I just mentioned, what was it? Sorry, Ravenna. Okay, they went to Rome was ruled from Ravenna for about 100 years, right? And then the Italians and the Europeans caught up to them there, and they had to move. So they went to Venice, to an island. You see, the Venetians are the Phoenicians, who are the Persians. Okay?
Right.
Now, and for all the listeners, on my channel, I've exposed all the families, all the names, all of them. And I've shown and proven how they all go back to Persia. So what happened was, because they were planning on taking over the Americans, what happened was there was a sudden destruction of all these ancient civilizations like Babylon, Sumeria, and Persia, Assyria, Egypt. You know, how can Egypt be destroyed? There's no way that humans with bows and arrows can destroy Egypt. So they've had technology. What they did was they made deserts all over Africa. They fucked everything up, and they brought everything, all of the money, the funds, they're called funds, I fondi. In Italian, it's called I fondi.
Yeah.
And those funds, those are the trusts that they started the Crusades, the Inquisitions, the conquests of the Americas with the fondi. But the Genovese were also maritime. So there's many maritime cities in Italy. We have to understand that what happened was everything went to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. They still do. But
They still do, yeah.
But they hide behind the curtains, and those curtains are two cities. Venice, on the water. There's a reason for that, because it's not supposed to be touching the Italian peninsula. It has to be offshore. You know about these offshore accounts?
Right.
Well, all the world's birth certificates are on that island of Venice. They're stored there. That's where your birth certificate is. They own you. You're contracted to them from birth. When you get stamped in the hospital, which is military, that's why you have a Surgeon General who runs the military. Why do you have a general running a hospital?
Yeah.
Surgeon General? Yeah. Why? Because it's military. And and hospitals, we all know that you just go to Wikipedia. What's the leading causes of death in the world? Doctors.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The one man fucks everything.
Misdiagnosis.
Look, when I checked 10 years ago, it was doctors. Now, I think it's heart disease and doctors are third or something like that. They're trying to sort of push the doctors down, but you just can't, because they're killers. Doctors are killers.
Santos,
they're trained killers. They don't know it.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I was talking to this guy. He was telling me that once you're born, like a birth certificate gets issued, as soon as a birth certificate gets issued, you become an entity. You're not a person anymore. Like you become an entity, like a thing. That's how you're controlled, because now they've got you. They've got everything about you, and they treat you not like a human being, but they treat you like an entity, like a corporation, like a company. Does it make sense? That was my thing.
That's exactly what I've been teaching for 15 years.
Yeah.
In fact,
yeah. Keep going.
It's person is not the word to use. They turned us into persons. A person is not what you are. You are not a person.
What are we?
You are a man. They took your manhood from you.
Yeah.
They took your manhood from you and they made you a person. Everyone's a person. A person comes from the word parson, which is ecclesiastical. It's the Inquisition. And a corporation comes from corpse, which means you're dead. And a person is a corporation. They are one and the same. A person is a corporation. A corporation is a person impersonating.
Oh, okay.
So now you're an imposter, and now you're belligerent because you're at war and you work for the boss because you've got a birth certificate. But let's go back to Geneva.
Yeah.
And by the way, when you wear your nice blue jeans, the word jeans comes from Geneva because that's where it was invented, because Italy was, still is, one of the leading textile civilizations in the world, and still is.
We've got Vatican there. They reckon that, obviously Vatican, that's another. Do you believe in that? Vatican kind of controls the world, certain well, we spoke about popes in the last podcast, so we're not going to touch on that. Yeah. Adam, you had a question regarding Hollywood, I believe.
All right, now let's just
powerful people.
Yeah, let's talk about this first question. This might ruffle a couple of little feathers, but I'm interested to know, and this might be a little bit overloaded, but I want to know your thoughts about people with influence, people in power. Now,
is he listening to you?
He can hear. Yeah, he's. Now, I know that you've got a few different beliefs on Hollywood, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I want to know, Bill Gates, he visited Jeffrey Epstein's island 37 times. Now, I've got this belief that he's not going to the beach to take pictures of his feet.
That's why Epstein had to go.
I want to know what Bill Gates is doing on Jeffrey Epstein's island. What are your thoughts about this?
Okay. On this planet, there are humans and there are non-humans, okay? And they are vampires. They are vampires.
Tom Hanks.
No,
Tom Hanks is a vampire.
Human entity, basically.
I want to hear this.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks is a pedophile. Steven Spielberg is a pedophile. All these guys, Madonna, all these famous people are vampires, adrenochrome junkies, and that's why. Look, search in Google. Do this, right? I'm 61. Now, you can tell that I'm not MK Ultra'd. You can tell that I'm just a dude, right? I'm a country bumpkin. You know me.
Yeah.
Right? I can see that you guys are human. You've got compassion. I can see you, looking after your children, being good parents, being good husbands, being good workers at work. We're all good people. All your listeners, we're all good folk. But everything's fucked up in the world, and there's such a thing as people trafficking. Wow. People trafficking? I mean, yeah, selling spices and herbs on the Silk Road would be better than trafficking little girls and little boys to murder and drink their blood. But the fact is, whether people laugh, believe it or not, it doesn't matter. These vampires they act compassionate and kind, and they get into politics and pretend to be looking after your back and everything like that. But behind the scenes, you got no idea what these people are doing. Even policemen, politicians, lawyers, judges. The pedophilia and the vampirism runs throughout this earth, and it's controlled by the egregore who rules them. Right?
Santos, yeah, sorry. I just wanted to clarify something. When you say there are vampires, like they're literally non-human entities, or vampire by nature? For example, a vulgar person or like a bad person is like, you can say that he's a bad person. He's a vampire. Like, do you mean it literally, or do you mean it? They actually are vampires. They're not human. How do you mean it? Do you think that their nature is vampire-y? What's the word? Correct term for it?
They're crazy fuckers.
Yeah. Or they're actually vampires. Please.
They're doing stupid shit.
No.
Look, I could answer that in many, many ways. It's a very, very convoluted subject, brother. But you have to understand this, okay? It's not figurative or metaphoric.
That's right.
Or symbol. Yep. I'm not alluding to, the fact that these people are just like narcissistic vampires. They are literal vampires. They feed on blood, especially little children's blood. Now, if I'm 61, right? Go to your search engine and write in there Hollywood actors aged 61, and tell me if you see one that's not full of wrinkles. They're all fucking ugly by the time they get to 60.
But if you're a vampire, shouldn't you stay young forever? You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole...
This is the trick.
Makeup.
Yeah, sometimes you see them looking fresh and nice, and other times you see reporters, getting sneak shots when they're on holidays, and they look really fucking ugly. And you go, wait a minute. I was watching the Glossy magazine the other day, and she looked beautiful, and now she's in a photo and she's haggard and everything like that. What they do, brother, is they're getting tricked. They think that this blood, because it's fresh, is going to keep them, living forever and what have you. What happens is it changes their DNA, because as soon as you eat the flesh of an animal or human or anything, it's got blood particles in it. Your DNA's changed, period. That's why we find it comfortable to have abattoirs where animals are being tortured by brutes who fucking break their legs, who get hammers and fucking smash their backs before they get shot and get sent to restaurants all around the world. You've seen undercover footage of all these guys that actually torture the animals and love inflicting pain on them. You see cows with broken legs crying, waiting. You see pigs that are in cages and all the little piglets are dying, and rats and all kinds of things. That's the food that people are eating.
And what they do is that this is actually legit. Like they torture dogs in China. They torture dogs, and dogs, their bodies release this hormone, and it makes their meat taste better. Like that's what they do. That's just cruel. Like, and I've seen people eat. On TikTok, on videos, like they eat live fish, live animals. Like what's the next stage?
The world's gone fucking mad.
We're humans. We should have that compassion. We should do it the proper way.
For those of you who have just joined us, we've got Santos here all the way from Mexico, backed by popular demand. We're talking about all different subjects, and we've just been discussing something very controversial. Look, we don't want to end up behind bars for our... I've got to give you an update, Santos. We had... you heard of Julian Assange?
Yeah, I know. Yep.
He just got released. So he's going to get released and we're going to get locked up.
mate. You know, you just got to choose your words wisely, mate.